When I was a kid, we didn't have any original artworks at all in our house, apart from one, and that was a picture made by an Italian prisoner of war, and it was of the pyramids with a camera in front of it, and it was made out of cigarette paper, and it used to glitter when you looked at it. So my mother said, "Why are you always fascinated when you carried you around as a baby? You used to keep chaining your neck and looking at this thing." Well, maybe it's the only picture worth interesting looking at, I don't know. Anyway, that interest in Egypt and history might have followed me through, because the only other pictures we went to see were the movie pictures. And as a child, we were taken, not very often, but taken to uplifting ones, things like The Robe and Quo Vadis, and of course Ben-Hur. And I remember the excitement of seeing those curtains when they, like that, you know, you can see the film, a big film that is about to come on, you know it is, because suddenly the curtains go like that, and you go, wow. And that's why probably I make these sort of panoramic things like that, you see, going sideways, and also why I maybe make these things rather like films with time in them, and close-ups and long shots and that, all sort of edited together. But one film I did go to see that I remember very much, so that I went to on my own when I was a bit older, was in about 1963, and that was the big blockbuster of the time, which was Cleopatra, with Richard Burton and Elizabeth Taylor, and of course that was very attractive to everybody, because they became an item during the making of the film, which took forever because she was ill at one time. But I went to see that, and one of the characteristics of that one that I liked was the fact that each scene started with a mosaic, which then dissolved into the real figures moving around. And then it ended with the real figures moving around, Roman soldiers and whatever they were, Egyptians and that thing. And then it slowly froze into a mosaic and sort of distanced it. So that sort of mosaic effect might have affected me. But the other thing I liked about it was this music, and I had it in my head when I was making the piece I'm going to show you in a minute. Quite haunting. I mean, I didn't play it all that well, but I thought it was quite haunting, and I thought of it when I made this piece, which is called Britain Through the Looking Glass. I made it in the British Museum in the Egyptian department. They had the museum closed early in the morning for me to do this, and it's about 28 feet wide, and it was photographed all in the Egyptian department, and I called it Britain Through the Looking Glass because it was like a parallel universe of a previous empire, and I was photographing it something that had been amassed by the British Empire when it was at its height. And of course what had happened to the British Empire by the time I was photographing this had happened to the Egyptian one a long time before. And here it is when it was installed in an American gallery sometime later. That's me actually standing on the left. There it is, and the piece above it, its companion piece, we'll talk about that later, not today. But there it is, Britain Through the Looking Glass, sort of parallel universe. for the one I was in, and the one I was probably going to go into in America, because I was about to set off to work in the United States, and I wanted to make something about the Britain I was leaving behind, which is obsessed with its past and the past of other countries. There's my daughter dressed as Alice, Alice through the looking glass, ready to explore. And what was interesting were the close-ups of people looking at this empire that had long gone. That's the people going round. And that was the most fascinating thing, to see them reflected in the glass. And also this one I rather liked. That little boy, the second family from the right, the paintings just like him on some of the mummy caskets from the time of Cleopatra, painted in Alexandria. So we look at it, see who When I got to America, teaching photography and video, I set up a department there. One of my best students was somebody called Alex, and she didn't really need teaching, she was so good. But I went to a graduation ceremony for all the students, and I met a father, and her father was, his first name was Joseph and his second name was Mankiewicz, Joseph L. Mankiewicz. And I had a long talk with him, and he'd been the director. He'd directed Cleopatra, and he said it had ruined his career because of the cost overruns, which weren't his responsibility. That he inherited a sort of a crock of shit, he said, and he had to pull it round. And it nearly bust 20th Century Fox. But as we talked quite a bit about cinema, and Alex showed him some of my work, and he liked it, including that piece I've just shown you. But one thing he said to me before we stopped conversation, he said, "So you like the cinema?" So I'd explained to him, you know, where my ideas come from and how it influenced me, even his Cleopatra. And he said, "What was the first film you saw?" I said, "Oh, I can remember that. My father took me to it. It's the only time he's taken me to the cinema on my own. I was about 10 or 11. He said, "What was it called?" I said, "It had Marlon Brando, and it had James Mason in it, and John Gielgud, and it was Julius Caesar." He says, "Julius Caesar?" I said, "Yes, you know it." He said, "I know it." I said, "Oh, I directed it." What can I say? Epic?